I think we are at historic times because the last 2 years we have leveraged the heck out of our human resources, and now we are beginning to feel maybe we don't need them that much as what we, how we use them the last 2 years. But I'm here to tell that's not true, and I'm here to tell that HR has a huge role to play in the next 2 to 3 years. And in fact, our theory at Draup is HR is as important, if not more important, than salespeople right now. And that's a story I'm going to speak in the next 15 minutes. The great historian Yuval Noah Harari once said that human beings evolve in terms of stories. That means the stories that we tell, the stories that we think about, the stories that we read really make us in the end. So if we lot of this is, I'll be giving you a lot of data as to why I believe HR will be the most critical function in the next 2 to 3 years. But a lot of it is also, you have to believe that to make it happen. So in as much as it's my responsibility to give the data, it is your responsibility to put it in action. Let me look at a few foundational trends. Today in the knowledge economy, or the knowledge workers, anybody who's touching the computer it can be broadly classified as knowledge workers. There is about 1.1 billion people across the globe. That is the size of the talent pool. So people who are here, you are almost touching 1 billion lives, one way or the other, by being the human resources for that. And I'm not even including the frontline workers, which the pandemic has taught is super important. And why did the frontline work actually became very, very important? Our assumptions on AI, artificial intelligence, have been delayed, or in some ways it's been a bit wrong, right? We thought by 2020, if you read it may reflect my age, but if you read the papers as early as like in the 1990s and the 2000s, we thought there will be no humans working by 2020. That was the vision 2020 that was set by AI. And very briefly, AI, we are in the third wave of AI and moving towards a fourth wave of AI. But if you go to Bay Area, the same presentation, I will say we are in fourth wave of AI because it really depends on the ecosystem to ecosystem, right? What is third wave of AI? We are no longer attempting to completely automate the tasks. In other words, the simplistic way to say the third wave of AI is, it is not a race against machines, it's race with machines. I think that's one way to look at the third wave of AI. And that has been, from an economic perspective, the previous waves of AI has not been very economically providing the returns on investments. What I mean by that is, there was not much money in making AI beat a chess player, right? It was just more a concept. And there was the early attempts in the 1990s to replace human beings. That is still largely a failed machine. So if you look at the current way of AI, the robotic process automation like a UiPath or an Automation Anywhere type of products, they are working very closely with humans, with a call center agent, with a HRBP, really to say that how can we make our efficiency and productivity slightly better than what it was the previous year, right? I think that is a very critical understanding. As a consequence of that, a lot of what we thought as frontline work that will be automated, we are not there. Like if you look at truck driving, it's a great example, right? We thought autonomous driving would really take over and there will be no manual truck driving. There is still, truck driving is one of the most valuable talent pool right now, right? We did not think about that this way, say 3 years or 4 years back. As a result, what happened was we discouraged the early career talent pool to get into some of these frontline work. And we have a huge shortage in frontline talent pool. In the United States, there is about 16 to 17% shortage in frontline work because the pandemic-driven displaced workforce. They have not necessarily come back. And we are also not creating newer jobs or newer talent pool in the frontline categories. And some industries have handled this slightly better than the other industries. If you look at manufacturing, they are trying to bring digital twins of sorts to really say, okay, how can I centralize maintenance so that if I need, say, 10 maintenance techs, can I get away with 4 maintenance techs or 5 maintenance techs? So there are some challenges that we have. And in order to continuously retain the existing talent and show them the career path, the role of HR is going to be super critical across both frontline and knowledge talent pool. Another important thing that has happened is the employee sentiments have changed. We at Draup use AI to mine over millions of data points on a daily basis to see how sentiments are changing. So basically looking at public chatter, employee chatter to really model what are becoming important for the people whom we hire, right? And that has shifted a bit in the last 3 years. Flexibility has come at the top. There is, in addition to the base pay, there is more focus on the benefits. And very interestingly, these are not just US trends, these are global trends. I'm sure, how many of you here have worked with more than one global location, like one country? Like, you can see this is a global audience, right? 10 years ago or 15 years ago, when you, let's say, in the computer and mathematics field, India is a very popular location to work with, right? So the benefits awareness in terms of the finer components of the benefits, people really did not focus much on that when they set up in India or other places. But now, because of how we work together as one entity, the richness of the benefits is increasing across all locations. Thereby, the cost of the benefits is also going up. And people also value those components in addition to just the base pay. Work-life balance, employee wellness has come in quite a bit. I think these aspects in terms of changing employee sentiments, how do we measure that? How do we actually ensure that our working population is taken care? Is a very important part of what we're going to be going to do in the next 2 to 3 years, because the dimensions in which we compete is constantly evolving. Another interesting thing that we are noticing is in the US, in 2020, about 70 million workers freelanced. And this includes both frontline work and as well as knowledge work. This is a phenomenal growth area. And we spoke to about 15 companies in the last 3 months. But maybe like 2 or 3 of them have an effective freelance strategy to how to truly integrate freelance workers into the ecosystem, and how do we take deliverables from them, integrate it into the mainstream work, and then how do we on an ongoing basis bring them into the project work. This is because there is still a lot of things need to be figured out from an intellectual property assignment, security aspects, onboarding, and then taking them off the work when the project is done. This is going to be an important area for HR. There are a lot of platforms that are coming up. It could be an interesting opportunity area for us to really look at what is our gig worker strategy from a workforce planning standpoint, and see how do we integrate that into our ecosystems. When we look at hybrid work, the pendulum sort of has been swinging from fully remote to hybrid to on-site. And there is just 2-3 minutes before coming in, I got a call from one of the telecom companies and say, like, is the mandatory vaccination policies really hindering people to come back to work in full swing or not? Like, these are the questions, like especially in a call center type of work. It is certain, depending upon the geography, depending upon the workforce, you could have a lot of the things that we put in pandemic place can actually become an interesting point to reevaluate. Like, how do we go about administering that? Because there may be some policies that are hindering how we approach the workforce. So these are fascinating times while Microsoft, for example, they are prioritizing remote work and expanding the capabilities of their products to make sure that the hybrid work and as well as the remote work works. Many companies are also attempting to slowly amplify the return to work to their office setup, right? This is kind of the dichotomy nature that we are facing in terms of where we are going to work. That is still to be figured out by leaders in this room. When we look at the opportunities for HR, the one that I am personally super thrilled is really the advent of metaverse into HR. This is a huge opportunity for all of us to learn a bit more in terms of where metaverse can impact our professions, because the sooner we figure out, better will be your opportunities, your career opportunities across the HR value chain. Let me give you one simple example on where it is already beginning to have an impact. Let's say you are interviewing a candidate and you have a recording of the entire transcript of that particular interview as a recruiter. In a metaverse-enabled platform, there are some platforms where you can specifically dissect 2 or 3 minutes of that conversation, share it with your leaders and say, hey, the candidate has demonstrated a lot of empathy. Do you agree or not agree? So rather than listening to the entire transcript, you'll have a full control of listening and dropping it within your HR metaverse and get that feedback in a more collaborative way. That's a very powerful use case, right? And there is also very powerful use cases from an L&D perspective, right? One of the important thing that is, there is a bottleneck. If you look at the L&D adoption bottleneck, people do not want to take modules that they are good at. Let's say you are implementing a training program and they already, it's towards a cloud certification, for example. If they already know cloud fundamentals, they don't want to actually go through cloud fundamentals again and waste their time. So they want to really go to the advanced stuff. So how do you use virtual reality? How do you use AR, VR in a metaverse setting and then opt out certain modules and directly go into the component that truly matters? Maybe do a case study in an AR, VR setup and accelerate learning. These are unbelievable opportunities that exist. And then there are some fun stuff too, which I'm not getting into, like AI-enabled twins and AI-enabled colleagues and so on. I think this is also going to be important from a planning perspective, not only from a usage perspective for human resources. It is also going to be super important for you to understand the stack so that you can get to your leaders and say, these are the types of technologies and roles and processes. And because an equal number of non-technical jobs also have to be put in place for this to work. What do I mean by that? When you adapt AI, there is, and when you transform your organization through AI and digital, there are a lot of benefits, but there are a lot of challenges that come into picture, right? Bias management, whether it is processes that need to be put in place for social values, processes that need to be put in place for minimizing harassment in the workplace. How do we make sure that we consistently and constantly increase equality, inclusion? All these complex benefits that you have through technology comes with significant number of challenges that only human resources can solve. Like wearables tech, like there is unbelievable use cases in collecting data about employee well-being, employee productivity on all those aspects. But it is also a double-edged sword in the sense there is a huge amount of data privacy, risk of mistrust type of issues that needs to be analyzed and documented. So when we say a technology or a digital transformation growth, it is not just the technical roles that needs to be in place. You need to really elevate the organization's process capability, bias management capability, and really put together a framework to enable organizations get transformed. So that is where our opportunity lies. Another important aspect that personally we at Draup are super passionate about is our understanding of job families and job roles are constantly changing. Today, if you are, say, amplifying certain capabilities like Tableau or any data visualization capability, you need to know where all it is hitting, where all it can impact, and what type of module can you launch so that it will have cross-job family impact. So it's not like a local thinking of, okay, I'm going to do a data visualization course. Those days are gone. Learning is continuous. Learning is going to impact across multiple job families, right? So if I say data visualization or a big data-driven course, this is an example within analytics, it's going to have an impact in finance. It's going to have an impact in HR on certain use cases. It's going to have an impact in digital marketing, right? The use cases may be different. In digital marketing, we may be using big data to do consumer insights. But in HR, you'll be using big data techniques to do application tracking or resume shortlisting and components like that. So having this awareness across the horizontal layers that will impact the verticals is another fantastic blueprint project for us. In addition to the 1,000 projects that you already have, you could consider launching this also. I think the other important thing, we were actually talking a little bit about that during our lunch session as well. The role that soft skills play in transforming a role, transforming a job role is not very well understood. We always celebrate hard technical skills, but we don't understand the value of soft skills even now. A business school study showed that what is the value of empathy in product design, right? What they did was they divided the group that designed chips for pregnant women into two groups. They said, okay, one group, just go after and use all the scientific principles of design, come up with the one product that, let's call that product A. In product B, they basically said, just talk to the end consumer, be empathetic, talk to pregnant women and understand and come up with a design for the chips that they would like. Let's call that product B. So one was science-driven design and the other was empathy-driven design. So when they launched the product, the empathy-driven design won by many, many shots, right? It is as simple as that. You may have all kinds of scientific and technical skills. If you don't have empathy, you can't design a product. I think Steve Jobs showed this long time back, and we are beginning to learn a lot of that. Similarly, analytics. I may show complex graphs. You may show complex graphs, but if you cannot connect to the pain point of why you are showing that graph, it is meaningless, right? These soft skills have become so important in the big data age. I think HR can actually take a bit more leading role in institutionalizing these skills. And there are, you can contact us to get this presentation, but one important thing, it's also public data sources. If you look at the taxonomies of ONET or European Commission, taxonomies of European Commission, or Singapore job family taxonomy, they've done a fabulous job of documenting what soft skills are important for what job families. I think that could be a great starting point for many of you. Overall, we believe that the roles will also evolve. For example, I spoke a little bit about gig work tracking analysts. I spoke a little bit about AI bias manager. And there are also roles that are coming up in very sophisticated companies about global cultural analysis like anthropologists, and that's going to become more and more important as we work as one culture spread across multiple cultures. And benefits, we are another big area, right? Benefits today is largely outsourced and done by the benefits administration company. But I think more data of that could be analyzed by human resources to see like what is truly connecting well with our employees and how do we amplify that. So if any of your boss is saying that by any chance giving an indication that you are not valuable, just step out of that company. You have thousands of roles available for you, and I think this is going to be a fantastic time next 2 to 3 years. That concludes my presentation.